take?
A couple of minutes. As long as you wanted, I'll take it.
Sure.
Excellent. So, what are you studying here?
I'm an art major.
You're an art major?
I'm visiting.
You're just visiting? Do you understand perspective then? You know what human perspective, the eye and how we view the world?
Yeah.
How would you describe that?
Oh.
Parallel lines appear to converge.
Yeah.
How would you describe the horizon?
I don't really know how to answer that.
Well, what's the horizon?
The furthest line you can see.
Where the sky and the earth appear to meet, but they only appear to meet. You know that they don't actually meet, don't you? Do you think that's possible on a spinning ball earth?
I don't think so, no.
No? Have you ever questioned the shape of the earth?
No.
Never?
No, never.
Never gave it a thought? What do you think life is? What do you think it's about?
Life? Oh man, probably just like discovering yourself.
Do you think there's an ultimate meaning?
No.
You don't?
So,
Think it's meaningless?
sort of, yeah.
No? Whatever you make of it. Do you think that human beings have got a propensity to just follow the cult that they're born into, like the culture and the scenario that they're born into, and they take things for granted, like like what you're doing right now? You'll say this is life. I go to college or university. You've got an identification, blah blah blah. But for me, none of that's rooted in anything objective. Do you know what that means?
Yes.
That you don't know what the objective truth of your existence is. Do you think it's supposed to be like that?
I think it helps give people comfort.
Comfort.
Sort of like find a meaning in something that's sort of meaningless.
What if I was to suggest to you that it doesn't have to be that way? What if I was to suggest to you that we used to have a real chronology of proper history, that we knew exactly where we were and what we were a part of here, and somewhere along the line we lost that? Do you think that's a possibility?
I'd say so, yeah.
Have you ever felt that we should know? Like it's not supposed to be confusing and a mystery?
Sort of, at times I guess, yeah.
I think it is. What if I was then to go further and suggest to you that if I made this statement, for me the Earth's not a globe, and scientifically it can't be proven that it's a globe. Scientifically though, I can demonstrate to you that it's level, for as far as we can experience it, it's level, and there's a possibility that there's more land beyond what we think we're actually a part of. Would you find that interesting?
Yeah.
Are you somebody that subscribes to aliens and outer space and all that kind of stuff?
I guess, yeah.
But see, for me, with that, we would never achieve that realistically, would we? In your life, do you think you would ever get to this idea of space or the planets that are supposedly out there?
No.
But what if I was to suggest to you then that it's across the way? There's a possibility that there is other life, but it's lateral and across the way. Would that intrigue you?
Yeah, I guess so.
Aye. But you've never thought about the fact that they've told you that the Earth's a spinning ball. So I take it you believe that it is. Yeah. So if I just go to your reasoning processes and just remove like appeals to consensus, authority or any of these things, as a single man to me, how would you prove to me that the Earth was a sphere?
I guess you'd have to just keep walking in one direction until you ended up where you started. I think you'd walk that far.
Do you think that's feasible? Do you think that's a scientific, feasible reasoning? Just to walk in a straight line and see what happens?
I guess not, I don't know.
If somebody was telling you the Earth had curvature to it, surely you would think that should be measurable. Scientifically.
Yeah.
But it's not. Every test I've conducted, there's no curvature. We were at Ailsa Craig, you know Ailsa Rock down at Largs? You ever seen Ailsa Rock? Ailsa Rock, it's in the west coast of Scotland. We videoed it from Largs, which is 40 miles away. The sphere Earth's telling us that we should only see 100 feet of that rock, where we could see the whole thing from 40 miles away. And we're anyway 4 feet elevation from the ground. We can see it. So for me there's a problem. They're telling me it's curved. The curve's not there.
Huh.
You ever seen a body of water that can bend? If I says to you, how does water behave? How would you describe the behaviour of water?
It just responds to gravity.
Maybe we should learn without
Takes it in space like that. It's contained.
It takes a space of its container. How would you describe the surface?
Level, I guess.
Level. So level meaning that it doesn't deviate its elevation from one point to the other point. it's at the same elevation. The surface is always at the same elevation. Do you agree to that?
At the same elevation from the core, yeah.
Oh, but that's just a mathematical description. In reality, if I wanted to level a foundation, I use water, because water tells me that it's perfectly horizontal. You would have to agree to that, wouldn't you? That's reality. So at what point do you think that it starts to be able to bend and display the bend upon the surface of the water?
Not entirely sure, I guess. I don't know.
See, for me, there's a contradiction, right? Because what I'm saying to you is real reality. But the reason that you probably think it behaves contrary to that is because of what you see on your TV screen. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, sure.
Have you ever experienced the Earth as a sphere?
I guess not, no.
Have you ever been to space to see it?
No.
Why do you believe it?
I don't know. I guess I don't know.
Perfect, that's all we're looking for.
Alright.
Pleasure speaking to you on that.
Thanks.
Are you going to think about it?
Yeah.
Going to think about it?
Sure.
Are you going to think about it?
Do you know what?
Are you going to think about what we were just speaking
Yes.
about? Does it make sense?
Yes.
Do you think that's some valid points to make?
Yes. Yeah,
So it's just the difference of believing what you see on the TV to what you can experience yourself. I think that's what's important.
Alright. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Take part in it.
what kind of questions are there?
Just honest questions, you know, I'm just getting kind of philosophical, just to get an honest reaction. It's no bit mockery or fun or any of that. It's just to get an honest representation of people's reaction.
Yeah, too.
Excellent. Can I ask you, are you a student here?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, can I ask you what you're studying?
Law, common law.
Common law.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get straight in. Do you know where you are right now?
Yes.
Where?
In Glasgow, just outside the uni.
Go bigger.
The UK.
Bigger.
The world.
What is the world?
Planet.
Planet. Can I ask you your reasoning for why you would say it was a planet? Just your honest reasoning,
What I've been told in my life.
what you've been told all your life.
Yeah.
Is there anything you could point to as an individual, just one to one, that you could show me, that you could justify that holding that belief? Is there something you've experienced, something you could point to that I could verify for myself that it was indeed a curved spherical planet?
No.
Nothing?
Well, no, other than sort of been told about, the fact that there's a sun in the sky and
Yeah.
if you keep going all the way around, you're going to get that crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's just what's being told to you.
Yeah.
What if I says to you there's no scientific experiment that can prove that there's curvature to the Earth? Would that concern you?
It doesn't really affect my life. The world.
That's what I was going to get to. Do you think that it's irrelevant then, that where we actually are would be irrelevant to your life? You think that's totally, doesn't have any impact on it whatsoever?
Probably, currently, yeah.
Yeah, right now because you're occupied.
Very busy, yeah.
But would you be honest enough to say then that the life that you're living is based on an idea, concepts, things that you've placed relevance on and you've attached to, and then you've pursued, your own experience of that. But it's not rooted in something objective, is it? Like the bigger picture of where we are, what we're a part of here.
Generally not,
No.
probably, no.
Do you ever consider any of these things, like what's life about?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What's your philosophy, if you have one?
Ah, my philosophy.
Right, go for it.
Okay, so it depends what terms you're going by. Like I'm really consequentialist.
Okay.
So in general terms, that's where I'm at. But I think politically, my philosophy is quite left wing.
Right.
So, but my idea generally is that I want the world to be more joined together.
Yeah.
And
Unified.
yeah, basically, and I think society should be too. I hate how divided.
So caring for each other's basic needs, the
Yeah.
fundamentals,
Exactly.
just the requirements of being an animal first and foremost,
Yeah.
rather than the other structures that we build.
Yeah.
But when I say philosophically, I mean the bigger picture. Do you ever think about the real, what is it you're actually a part of here? Do you subscribe to like heliocentric cosmology, like Big Bang, evolution, these types of things? You take that on, and that's what you think you're a part of.
Yeah, probably. I've never thought too much in
Too
depth.
much
I've
about
never
it.
read loads on that side of stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, probably.
You just kind of take it lightly, and that's where your reasoning comes from.
Yeah, probably.
Excellent. So what if I was to then, how would you feel if I was to say to you that for me there is absolutely no proof that the Earth is a planet, a sphere,
Yeah.
and I have tried to prove it to myself. For 36 years of my life, I assumed what I was being told was truthful
Yeah.
until I went out and tried to verify it for myself, and I failed at every turn.
be super interested to know why.
Super interesting. Well, first and foremost, there is no detectable curvature.
Okay.
There is no scientific experiment that can detect curvature or motion. It's
Yeah.
never been proven. When I test these things, what I can find, see, I always go with a practical. It has to be practical in order for me to accept it as part of my reality. Would you ascribe to that?
Probably.
Rather than it being metaphysical or just, sophistry based in words and language and linguistics, because that's, it can sound, correct and using rhetoric, but if I don't have a practical reference, I can't accept it as being part of my objective reality.
Yeah.
Do you think that's reasonable?
I can understand it being reasonable. I don't necessarily subscribe to it, but I can understand it being reasonable.
Yeah. So there's certain things that people can say to me that I can say, okay, well, they've been to Mount Everest, they've said Mount Everest is real. So there's that kind of point. But if somebody was making a claim to me like the Earth that I'm on is curving, and then I go to try and find that, and it's not there, and what I find is the opposite, then I have to follow where the proof's taken me, what I can demonstrate for myself. The other reason that I'm conflicted with is based on the physics of water.
Right.
If I asked you, how does water behave, what would your description be?
It flows and it can change states. Not much more than that.
As a liquid state, I would say, if I say to you, it takes the shape of a container. It's formless, it'll take the shape of a container, just as you say, it'll flow downhill, it'll fill the lowest point and it will start to fill up. How would you then describe the surface of any standing body of water?
Flat.
Flat. Well, if I use the word level,
Yeah.
so level to me is, if I start here, there's no deviation in elevation to my end point. You would agree that's what level means?
Yeah.
It's a straight line. So all standing bodies of water take that property, that's the behaviour of them, regardless of the scale.
Yeah.
So at what point then do you think it could curve?
It's about gravitational force then, isn't it? Because our gravitational force is different to that of the surface of the Earth, isn't it? Or like I do not know enough about science of this, but
That's
like.
perfect though, because this is what we're looking for as an honest. I'm always trying to needle the reasoning for why people say the things and the beliefs that they hold. So again, you're saying that, and for me that's mathematical sophistry. It's just words. Now if I was to ask you to demonstrate that to me, could you demonstrate it?
I couldn't personally know, but I don't know if it's the case that nobody could.
So do you think it's possible then to take a rock, say, and then get a body of water to stay on the rock and take the shape of the rock and display the topography underneath upon its surface?
Not here, no.
Where?
And it's about the scale as well, isn't it?
So where would you think you could demonstrate that to me?
It's all like stuff when you're saying you don't know anyone who's seen the fact that the Earth is round, like we've seen that Everest exists. Obviously, if you go out into space, that changes your perspective.
So we would have to be removed from the reference frame.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a bit religious? That's like me speaking to a Christian, and no offence to any religion, but I'll ask them questions about their religion and they'll say God's metaphysical, God's in another dimension, he's out with space and time and yada yada yada. I'm like, well, I can't demonstrate, so why should I hold a belief in it? Because it's like a religious doctrine then. If you're going to assert something to me about my reality and then tell me at the same tongue that you need to remove us from the reference frame in order to demonstrate it, I'm like, nah, that's a bit pseudoscience to me.
What about the fact that when it comes to religion, you can't, in my opinion, I've never seen any actual physical evidence like filming or anything like that that proves religious event, whereas you can film from outside the Earth the fact that the Earth is round.
You've never done that?
Nope, I haven't.
Where have you seen that? On the TV?
Yeah.
Do you think that the TV and the governments are always honest?
No, but I think that you can trust that the person doing it could be, and that you have to have spoken to those people personally to assert that they're not being honest.
So here, this is a crux out there, right? So these people tell me this, they show me this picture, they give me a mathematical formula of curvature rate, which is 8 inches per mile squared.
Yeah.
Then I take everything that they've told me and I go into reality and I apply it.
Yeah.
Reality conflicts, contradicts what this image and these people are telling me. So where do I go? Do I go with reality or do I go with the institutions that are telling me it? That's the choice that we have.
Yeah.
So what would your choice be?
Whatever I fancy, because it doesn't affect my life.
Doesn't affect your life. But does it really though? Because what if we're somewhere that you could say is a design? and that there's possibly more land across the way. There's maybe other lives, there's maybe other civilisations that we don't know about. You don't think that would affect your thinking in any way, shape or form?
No, of course it would. It would make you more interested in what you
Exactly.
see. I know, but the fact is, if you lived life constantly questioning everything you're always told, your life becomes chaos, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. I just happen to find myself at this point in life where I see the relevance of this because, as I said to you at the beginning, you know, the structure that we have, civilization, the cultures, the practices, you know, marriage, jobs, hobbies, their ideas, they don't satisfy me philosophically because I've got a deeper question of my existence. And then I see the relevance of that. You know, it's like if you've got cattle, you can fence the cattle in, and the cattle will get to the perimeters and they accept that's the perimeters, whereas with human beings you can't do that. Human being sees a perimeter, sees a wall and wants to go over to see what else is there. So for me, I can see how the globe works in that sense, because in our minds it creates this isolated pocket that we think we're a part of. There's no way off, there's nothing else to discover, so we stay still and we just partake in the practices that we've always took in. Does that make sense to you? So I'm just trying to open up the discussion with students in the universities and blah blah, because really scientifically this is a valid discussion to have. We've been met by so much ridicule, propaganda, you know, like you've probably seen it in the mainstream, flat earthers, this, that, the other. Well, I'm not a flat earther because I don't know the full dimensions. What I can prove to myself right now is that it's a level plane that we're on. Everything that I can demonstrate shows that, even down to the geometric assumptions that we make and we apply. You know how Euclid was? Euclid of Alexandria? You heard of Euclidean geometry? So these are the geometric assumptions we make that we apply in like construction, navigation, and they're planar. They only work on a plane surface, they don't work on a curved surface. So again, we've got all this stacking up, all this evidence that contradicts this image I've seen on the TV screen.
That's an interesting question. Have you spoken to many physics kids and like?
Well, we're trying. We've got a friend, Gav, he comes to the podcast. He was a graduate here. He's in his 50s now, he's a maths and physics graduate. So we've been writing letters, we come here, we're trying to invoke the discussion, but the doors just keep getting shut and they keep running away. And all we're getting through the mainstream is continual propaganda and misrepresentation. You know, making statements about people like us, about claims that we don't make. You know, like we're on a pizza dish and we're floating about in space. You're like, this is cartoonery, it's total nonsense, you know? When we're asking valid questions. So again, that's the other thing I would ask you quickly. I appreciate your time. If it's scientific, it should be objective. Would you agree with that? That's what science should be based on. Should there ever be a point where it shuts its door, it closes its books and it engages in ridicule or any of that stuff?
No, definitely not.
Definitely not for me. Do you think it should always remain open to anybody, any generation, to have the ability to question even the most, you know, deeply held fundamental aspects? It should always be open to question, as far as I'm concerned anyway. You would agree with that?
Yeah, probably, unless it's for some reason, which I can't think of now, but it was really dangerous, like genuinely dangerous to question it, then obviously I would agree with that.
But I think it's fair game for us to question the reality we share, innit? And do you think it's unreasonable of me to say, as a fellow human being, if you make a claim to me, you have to have a practical reference for me to accept that it's reality? Do you think that's reasonable, or were you disagreeing?
I think you're allowed to think that. Just obviously having studied a lot of philosophy and politics, things like that, a lot of it is about hypothetical situations that you're never going to be in. And it's about logic argument, and obviously logic is a different realm. So it depends. I've not done enough science to know if there's that many logic arguments in science, but potentially.
So logic's part of, it's the formal sciences. This is how I understood the categorisation. You know, in science, people always use the word science as a broad generalisation. When you actually go to the subdivisions, so you've got the natural sciences, which is physics, chemistry, biology, that deals with the real world. And the formal sciences, you've got like logic, mathematics, and these are language based, so they're not rooted in the objective world, so they can be used for manipulation.
I see what you mean with that,
you know, so I always stick to the natural sciences. You know, well, where's the physics, where's the practical, where's the stuff that I can quantify and I can practically measure, you know. And as I say, I've got a problem with the globe concept, the heliocentric. It doesn't add up. It's not stacking up, and I'm honestly looking for it. So hopefully it's intrigued you to maybe keep it in your consciousness.
It's interesting. It's genuinely interesting.
Have a think about it. It's really nice to see the open mind. You know, usually people have got a preconceived through the media. You meet somebody like me and automatically people are going, you're a flat earther, and the conversation kind of ends there because their preconceived notions always come at the forefront, rather than just dealing with me as a person and having the open discussion. So Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See
All
you
the
later.
best. Take
Good
care.
luck.
You too. Thanks. I'm Del. How you doing?
How you doing?
Toby. How you doing? Toby?
Yeah.
Have you guys heard the people questioning the shape of the Earth?
Oh no. Yeah, we heard it.
Yeah. Obviously, your reaction is you've got some ideas there about that.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
It's round.
As a man to man, don't make any assumptions about me, right? But I'm just trying to point this out to get to the reasoning processes of people. As a man to man, without appearing to consensus or authority, how would you prove to me that the Earth was round?
I'll just show you research pictures.
It's not only that, I mean, we already have the ISS, moon landing.
TV.
Like satellites, all the sort of like research
Everything
that's
you
done
just
by
listed there,
now.
you see on the TV because you've never experienced it.
Well, obviously,
If you the money, yo, I want to see myself.
No, I don't know. If like
I mean, there's
NASA's
just some
done
more-
it, then
So would you say that you've got faith?
I mean, it's if you look
faith
at the
on
sun,
science.
Hang on one at a time. Sorry.
Faith on science.
Yeah,
Faith on science.
Yeah.
But how you're saying science like it is science. What if I was to say to you that scientifically I have checked and what they give me in regards to the picture they show me and the
How
mathematical
would you
formula?
prove that, though?
Well, they gave me the mathematical formula, 24,000 mile circumference, 8 inches per mile squared. Then I take what they tell me and I go into the actual world and I try to verify or, see if it's there, and it's not there.
Alright, is there an edge to this? What do you believe in?
Oh no, see
What shape?
you're jumping.
No,
You're
I'm
jumping.
wondering, what shape do you think it is?
Well, it's what I can prove to myself right now, it's level. There is no curve.
Okay.
But I don't know the full dimensions, I don't know what's
well,
beyond.
I mean, if you look at balloon flights as well, like I have people, and I've done balloon flights myself, like I have balloon flights. You can see like the curvature of the
Using a wide angle
Gravity
lens.
not prove it?
Yeah, because like, the way gravity works, it's
Yeah,
like
because if you fire a satellite out the way, like if you were to just fire out the way, it would just keep going. So gravity, as long as it's within like the gravitational pull of the Earth,
What is gravity?
like the gravitational pull of the Earth.
It's the attractive force between two massive.
Right, so this is a good point to get here, right? Because again, we're talking about physics, right?
Yeah.
So you just said attract and you used the word pull. Describe these things for me. Describe attract physically and pull as a physical mechanism, a force that creates motion. Can you?
Pulls like a leaf. So when it falls,
So put your finger out and you bring me towards you. You say that's pull. That's a pulling force.
It's like invisible force, so it's like
What's invisible?
It's not. It's between two small masses. You can't see it.
Where?
Sorry,
To see it.
you can't see.
you
It.
can't see.
So between massive, like planets, for example, it's a pair. That's why it's like hard to show with actual. I mean, magnets.
Magnetism.
Magnetism. Yeah, but yeah.
Because we're
Can't
still
see it.
investigating what magnetism, nobody really knows what's going on with magnetism. But in regards to physics, there's no such thing as pull. Pull is not a force. Motion is only created by variance in pressure. So something has to press on something else to create motion. That's what we know, that's what we can demonstrate. Pull, it's like me saying, right, I'm going to make you come towards me by just magic. It doesn't exist.
It's an attraction.
So we've kind of went away to the initial point. But what I'm just trying to capture is the honesty of, when I ask the reasoning for why people believe it's a globe, the majority of the time, and I know for a fact, it's because you've seen it on TV, and that's what you were told through your education system. But you as an individual, each individual, you've never experienced the Earth as a globe.
See when you're flying, can you not see the curvature?
Yeah, you can see it.
But when you're flying, see the horizon? The horizon comes up to the level of your eye. On a sphere, a geometric sphere, a curving Earth, where the curve goes downwards in every direction from your feet, it should never be up at your eye level.
Okay, so here, let me. Okay, so when ships sail in the distance,
Yeah,
when they're out in the distance,
Yeah.
the hull disappears. You can still see the mast.
That's-
So that means it's.
no, that's about light, that's about diffraction. It's the way light behaves. Well, look, I'll make an example for you right now. See these trees? Let's assume, are these lampposts? You know physically, as an engineer, that every one of those lampposts is the same size. Now, as we look along this street, what happens to them?
Yeah, that's relativity. It's relatively far.
It's perception.
That's point.
Yeah, but still, I
That's
mean,
to do with your eye.
Okay, like so if you take a telescope
Yeah.
and you look at a ship,
Yeah.
does it still
A
like you see it?
telescope based on the eye.
Yes, but you still see the mast. You don't see the hull. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, not in all cases. In a lot of the cases, you can actually see the whole thing. We were last week. We went. Do you know Largs at the west coast of Scotland?
I'm not really familiar.
You know Largs? Have you ever seen Ailsa Rock? It sits out in the water. It's like the mound that sits itself. We filmed that from the RNLI building, which is 40 miles from there to the rock. It's the sphere Earth dictates that we should only be able to see 100 feet at the top of that to see the whole thing. You can see it reflecting on the water at the bottom of it from an elevation of 4 feet. So they're telling us that it's curving and that we should only be able to see so much of this rock that we can see the whole thing. So who's wrong? Reality or the image in the TV?
It's not like you're saying that TV is kind of brainwashing people because I mean it's small size.
Well, give me a reason that you believe it other than TV.
I mean research papers, people spend their lives.
See the
sun.
But the Bible's a research paper. Does that mean,
Yeah,
that mean it's factual?
But it's just it just comes down at the end of the day. It just comes down to what you believe in. Like you can believe if it's round, it's round. If you believe it's
Well, I go with science. I'm a realist. I go with the natural sciences, physics, chemistry, biology. That's based on substance, what can be demonstrated, what can be quantified, and what can be practically shown. So when I utilise the natural sciences, the globe Earth falls apart. What I've found is that the globe Earth's a mathematical concept based on vision. It's not a three-dimensional tangible object.
But like, okay, so there's only one sun, right? You
I
believe in
don't know
sun.
what the sun is.
You know what the sun is?
I don't know what it is. Do you?
Star, basically.
Do you know what it is?
It's just a star.
A ball
that we
of
get,
fire?
Yeah.
And a vacuum? But how does gas inside a vacuum pull itself together?
Gravity.
That's just words. That's just like a religious person saying God. You can't demonstrate. Look, in physics, this is a problem, right? See, if I make a medium that's a vacuum, right? And then I put a rock inside that vacuum and I try and make air stay around the rock inside the vacuum. That's not what happens. The air immediately disperses equally to fill the void. But yet they're trying to tell you that up there there's a vacuum and we're in pressurised air. Physics dictates that that's impossible. Physics is telling you that's impossible.
Between large bodies, I mean, it makes sense.
But do you understand what I'm saying to you? What I'm saying about that claim, right? Physics shows me that's an absurdity, total absurdity.
I beg to differ.
Well, you said science a minute ago, and now I'm offering the science, and you're refusing the science.
It's the science that you're taught, though. It's the science that we've been taught throughout school. It's the science that we've been taught in uni.
So question what that is, because that's what I'm saying to you. The science that you've been taught about the globe Earth is a formal, it's a language, it's based on mathematics. It's not based on the natural sciences. The natural sciences is chemistry, physics and biology. The formal sciences is mathematics, logic, yada yada. These are language based. So you can formulate, arguments utilising language, but that doesn't mean that it falls into the category of the natural sciences. In order for it being the natural sciences, it must be quantifiable. You must be able to measure it or demonstrate it in some way. So, just move on quickly because I know you guys are probably busy. One of the other aspects for me is the physics of water. If I ask you, how does water behave, how would you describe that?
It's a liquid.
It's a liquid and it's a fluid, its behaviour is fluid-like. If I said it takes the shape of the container, any container it will take the shape of, how would you describe the surface of a standing body of water?
It is flat.
So level, was level a better word? So the level meaning that there's no deviation in elevation from any given point upon that.
Yeah, but what size are you looking at?
So
It's a container like this big of flat, but there will be like the tiniest.
what about a canal?
That would do like different
I mean,
geometries and stuff.
like you can't take a scale of 2, 3, 4, 100 kilometers. You have to take
So
it.
at what size do you think that the water can start to bend and maintain the bend on the surface? What size do you think it has to be?
At like thousands of kilometers.
Thousands of kilometres, but it's 8 inches per mile squared. 24,000 mile circumference Earth is 8 inches over the first mile, and then it squares exponentially because the curve's increasing all the time. So if I go to some body of water, I should be able to measure that, but it's not there.
How would you measure it?
Eh?
How would you measure it?
Well, you can measure it, if I build something. If I was to build, say I was to dig a trench right now, and we never had anything to measure that if we had it level, we could fill it with water. That water line's going to show me whether there's a if the water starts to flow, then I know I'm on a slope.
How
If the
big
wa-
is this stretch?
Doesn't matter how big you make it stretch. The physics of the water doesn't change. See, the molecular structure of water doesn't allow it to support shear stress. So it can't bend, it doesn't show the topography of underneath upon the surface. The surface always equilibrates to a flat line, always 100% of the time. We use it in construction, we've been using it for years and years and years. But that contradicts a sphere Earth. So would you be honest enough then to say that you do have faith and that you blindly believe it?
I would say faith, believing it based on research.
What somebody else says.
Yeah.
But as individuals, you couldn't prove to me that it was curving.
But how would you prove satellites and GPS and stuff like that? How would you prove that stuff?
Well, all this stuff was done back in the day, by triangulation. It's always been tower based.
Yeah, but now
You have satellites just around the Earth, ISS for example.
I've never witnessed any of that.
I guess
I mean, you
neither
can,
of
see,
us
you can
have.
kind of see it.
But even if I was to round that to say, okay, well, there may be something up there, right? That doesn't give me a scientific proof that the Earth that I'm standing on is curving.
It's sufficient to notice the rotational motion of the whole satellites.
But the whole day and night, you don't
Yeah.
understand that.
well,
Cycle.
How okay, so
If
if
there's
there
one sun, right, going right,
Uh-huh.
does that sun just go backwards or what?
What if it's going round, it could be going round like this for all I know.
but
Where's
that
the
would
moon
still-
then?
The moon could be doing the same.
What about-
You'll be able to see the moon though.
What do you mean?
Exactly, like right behind, right beside the moon.
Yeah.
It's behind the sun.
That doesn't make sense, does it?
Exactly. So if the sun and the moon were both rotating, like day and night cycles, then we see both of them in the sky.
You do see both of them in the sky?
Not at the same time.
I do. All the
That's the
time.
season. That's the season.
I see the sun and the moon in the sky all the time at the same time.
And then the season.
When it's on the other side, you can't see it though. It's not okay. It's not like the best argument. But I mean,
But the thing about it is, right, if I point that out to you, we can talk about this in regards to the assumptions that are made about what these things are. You also have to take vision and human vision and the limitations of vision that we have. What is light? There's so many investigations. But here, I'll ask you this. Can you tell me why anything above you gives you measurable proof of what's beneath you? Yeah? See if I came to your house and I was coming to fit a carpet in your home, and I came into your home and I pulled out my stuff, my spirit level and my tools, and I started climbing up to your light bulb to measure it, you would think I had escaped from a mental institution.
Probably.
Here you are telling me to look up there about what's down here.
okay, so if the Earth is flat and you have the sun, right? So if it's daylight in one place, that means it's daylight all over the Earth, right?
But that's you assuming that it's far removed, like 93 million miles, and it's shining on the whole surface. If it's closer, if I had a torch here and it was shining at a certain area, and I move away up there, it's going to be dark here.
So you say there's no end to the flatness of the Earth.
I don't know what's out there. It's all restricted. You can't freely go exploring the north or the south.
But what would the guy that sailed around the world and proved it? By coming back to the same point. Exactly my point. Exactly
Does
my
that mean
point.
that's a round ball?
No, he kept going straight.
you-
Like you don't.
He went
No, he
straight.
kept going
The
straight.
guy that sailed went straight like.
There's never been totally over the north, right under and across Antarctica and back. It's never been done.
That's what satellites do.
Never been done.
But that's what satellites do.
That's
They
your
follow the
belief.
curvature of the world.
That's just your belief.
If that's the case, I mean, it's like a very
call you
well
in.
sold concept. Like,
But here's the thing: we don't know what the reality of our existence is. There's so many assumptions about that.
yeah,
Well, here, if I suggested this to you just as a play, right? Animals, when we farm animals, we can fence them in.
yeah,
Because when an animal comes up against a barrier,
Yeah.
it accepts the limitations.
okay,
Human beings don't accept limitations like that.
Yeah.
If they see a barrier, what's beyond it?
yeah,
You tell a human being that they're on a globe, that creates an image in your mind that you're on somewhere that you cannot escape from, that there's nothing else for you to discover.
okay.
What if I was to suggest the possibility that across the way there's other land?
Right.
I'm just saying as a possibility.
I mean,
Entertain the idea that there may be other lands across the way, and this is the reason why they don't want us freely moving. What if there's other civilizations there?
And if there was, then they'd want us to see them, wouldn't they? Like Like,
You ever
you
looked
want
at
mankind
You ever
to
looked at how
evolve.
dysfunctional we are?
Yeah,
like-
you'd want like if you found something, you'd want mankind to evolve and sort of
Like
like.
six-
But what if they were more advanced? Just for its talking's sake, what if it was more advanced? Right? Look at the state of us. We can't even sort out the basics here. We're at war with each other. There's famine. There's homelessness. There's so much nonsense. Would you really want us infecting some other area?
That boils down to human behaviour, though.
Exactly. So if there's another civilization that will get their shit sorted out,
Yeah.
would you really want us wandering in and spoiling the party?
But like, if there's 8 billion of us,
But what if
one
we're
of us
better than-
would at least try to cross the barrier.
But it's restricted.
By
Well,
beings.
you ever heard of the Antarctic Treaty?
No.
Never heard of that? Check it out. It's a treaty that was made, and there's something like, is it 47?
Like no bases on
Yeah,
the
47
early
nations
50s.
that work in unison and have an agreement to no go to Antarctica. It's out of bounds. But yet in the middle, we're all warring with each other. But for a patch of supposed ice, they make a treaty to stop and prevent people from going there. Why? They're telling you that it's that harsh that you wouldn't last 10 minutes. What do they think you're going to do? Go there with a fucking carry out and make a mess?
I don't think it's that. It's because, I mean, you have a strategic position. If you're on there, you have reach on to everyone, basically. And
Chances of
basically
survival
military
is
restriction as
low.
well. Maybe
It's
people
like-
you have, they want to tell you that, but I mean, everything.
Well, there's an interview that you can watch from a guy called Admiral Lee Bird. He done expeditions to Antarctica, I think it was the 40s. And he's on TV talking about his expeditions, and he talks about an ice shelf being 10,000 feet or 10,000 feet high. He had to fly up and over it. But he says when he went up, he says beyond what we call the South Pole, he found a continent bigger than Middle America.
Beyond the South Pole.
Beyond.
You can just
Like-
see the other side of the pole.
He says it was a
But how
continent.
does he prove that? Like how can?
Do you
Well,
take a picture?
what I'm saying to you is that this is documented testimony from a military man who was responsible for these expeditions. This is his word. He's telling you that there was land beyond what we call the South Pole with all
That's
sorts
just
of
the same as the
resources.
scientists telling you that the Earth is round. and
Exactly.
that's why
But what I'm saying is that it's intriguing.
Yeah.
And I want to go there to find out, but I can't. If I want to go there, I can only go so far, but it's a wee guided tour, and then they take me back again. So they've got set areas that you can go. You know, you can't go freely travelling below the 60th
Maybe they
parallel.
don't know like
How
what.
high must they be flying to be able to like determine how big this land was?
I don't know. Do you not think it's interesting? Do you think that it's justified to have a wee investigation into this? Do you think that science should be a closed book? If you, regardless of
No,
what
I
you
think
believe,
I think that theory is sort of like like known of, but like I think definitely there's like scope for like seeing what else there is out there, like in outer space, if there is any other civilization. I believe in all that kind of stuff. Like
that's what I'm saying. For me, I don't think it's up there. I don't think that outer space exists. I think it's just a concept. That's just
anywhere,
what
like,
I
it could
think.
be like sideways or like it could be anywhere.
Yeah,
but-
across the way.
But it's just a case of like
So
how would you explore it, kind of.
and you
Well, we
can
need
see
people awake to it. We need people demanding it, and rather than just taking it for granted that what they've told you is truth. Because as I say, if you think and you've just assumed, like I done, that I'm on this wee rock, it never enters my mind that there's anything else out there. Does that make sense to you? Because I'm thinking I'm on this isolated rock and a void with millions of miles between me and everything else. So I know, realistically in your mind you say, well, I'm never going to achieve anything there. So I'm not going to think about it.
Okay, so let's see. Let's look at it in this way. So let's say that you have some person that used to work in a big government program, top secret stuff like that knows all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you have a whistleblower at some point? He has to tell them.
There has been.
But why?
There has been.
I haven't.
Well, this is because you're maybe not looking for it. And anybody, if you're not looking for it, things can be suppressed.
I mean, that kind of thing is kind of. It would be hectic, like if it got out.
Well,
So
I'm
it would
here-
be like everyone would know about
You're
it.
speaking about it, and I've been here continually. Look, I've got a friend of mine that's called Gav, who comes to my podcast. He's an honours degree graduate from here, maths and physics. He understands, what's been done in regards to mathematics. He does not subscribe anymore to the globular Earth. So what we're trying to achieve is an open discussion. You know, the scientific community, what we're seeing so far is they're engaging in propaganda, ridicule, trying to hand wave, dismiss things, push it under the table. That's not representing objective inquiry. That does not represent objective science as far as I'm concerned. But regardless of what anybody wants to believe in, if you're claiming something scientific, it should always be open to investigation. Surely you would have to agree with that. Exactly. And what, again, all the ancient, kind of what we can find, ancient cosmologies, all depicted, some sort of level Earth cosmology. It's the globe that's the one that came later on. Regardless of what they told you, if you go and look at all the ancient stuff.
Not really. I mean, you had Galileo. Was it Galileo? I don't quote me. Yeah, don't quote me on like who did it, but there definitely was like.
So just to sum it up, I mean, I just need an answer. Does it, if it concerns you? They tell me and they show me on the TV that it's a globe. Scientifically, I take what they tell me and I go and try and verify it. And all I can do is falsify it. It's not showing up. It's not there.
Are you trying to falsify it?
No, you can't you're not falsifying it. You can't prove it's right. Like you can't
prove it's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's just that grey area.
Well, if I says to you, there's a leprechaun up there behind that tree, and you go up there and you don't find it.
But then
where's the burden of proof? Where does the burden of proof lie there?
No, but then I wouldn't go there. It needs to be like believable. Like they put all these facts out, they put all of that out to try.
Like if you tell me
the imagination.
They put all this theory out that you kind of like believe in, and then I get what you're saying, that there's this like grey area when you can't go and you can't prove what's right, what's wrong. But unless someone does, then what they've said, like the majority will go with that.
So what do you think about me and the thousands of other people who are actively, showing these things? You're seeing too far, like Ailsa Rock. You can go and see yourself. You can see it from 40 miles away. You should not be able to see that.
But like, put that in context, it's like seeing the Ailsa rocks and then like seeing a round image of the Earth from a satellite.
So if you get a big telescope,
but that's what I'm saying. That's the difference. That what you're saying, what the choice here is that invest your belief and your faith on the TV, or investigate it yourself and see if it stacks up. Now, when I've done that, what reality showed me contradicts what they're showing me on the TV, so I go with reality.
So by that logic, right, you stand on like the Burj Khalifa with a super high-end telescope, you'd see Australia.
No.
How not?
Because, as I showed you before, optics, your eye and optical devices are subject to perspective. When you look along this street, the floor rises up, everything gets smaller, the sky comes down and everything narrows towards what they call the vanishing point. That's how we see as human beings. That's not what's actually happening physically, that's happening here in your eye. So there's limitations. When that floor rises up, there's limitations to the angle that the light can get to your eye, so things start to be obscured. It's like if I was in the distance and I had two objects, eventually I get so far, the objects merge and they look at one object, you can no longer determine separation between the two objects. Just have a look, if you deny it, you deny the floor's rising up right now as you look along there.
That's just uneven.
Even if you're on a perfectly straight, as you look straight, the floor in your field of view comes into the middle of your field of view. The trees get smaller and everything converges to the vanishing point.
That's human biology.
The eye.
Doesn't.
But that doesn't affect the telescope.
I don't disagree with that. But
Exactly.
It doesn't disprove the fact that.
The point was that he was saying, why can I not see Australia from wherever his destination is? Because their eye and optical devices are based on the eye, so they're subject to perspective.
But if it rises, surely Australia will also rise under the telescope.
What about if you had a camera?
I think everything's getting smaller.
Okay, let's take.
It's a limitation. You would need, your eyes would have to be like telescopic, where they could extend infinitely like that. That's not how it works.
You can't see forever,
What about cameras?
see pretty far.
Not looking through a telescope.
You can see
You have a super zooming in lens. Yeah, like super zoom in.
Yeah.
You're not looking through a telescope. I mean, it's projecting an image. Couldn't you still see what you would see if you were at that point?
No, because this is based on the eye. It's still subject to the same aspects that the human eye is subject to.
But it's making an image, so like it's not adjusting to your eye, if you know what I mean.
No, but it is constantly adjusting for focus and stuff. If I look down that street and the floor rises and everything converges and gets smaller, when I look through that, it still does that because that's based on
But
the
that's one lens, not two.
Yeah.
Like, so we have a focal point with our two eyes. That's just one lens.
Yeah.
So
But it's still subject to the same principles.
Right.
No, it is.
Yeah, because you're looking through the lens. Like, it doesn't change the fact that you're using your eyes to look through the lens.
So if you take a picture and then just zoom in on it, let's say it's like the best quality picture in the world, and you just keep zooming.
No.
You'll only be
You're
able
talking
to
about
see
a
until your
two-dimensional.
eyes.
No, you're talking about a 2D image. I'm talking about the three-dimensional world we live in and how things appear to us. Like, you can't deny that the floor rises and things get smaller in the distance. You can't deny that.
It appears to rise.
It appears. That's exactly right. Because I can, as an engineer, I can measure every lamppost and they're all the same size.
Yeah.
But yet when I stand back and I look along them, they all get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So that's about the eye. And that's what I'm saying about the globe. That's where it comes from. It's based on vision. It's a concept based on how we see.
I disagree. It's not only that. I mean, I'm going to go back to the argument of gravity. The simplest shape, if you think about it, is a circle. You can just spin
That's
something.
mathematical. Where does nature make circles?
Do you not believe in maths then?
I believe in maths. I think maths is a
It's the
useful tool.
mathematics you believe in.
Mathematics is a useful tool, but it's no reality. Mathematics is not reality. It's a man-made.
Can define
Some
quite a
people,
lot.
some people
Yeah,
say
but it's
that.
man-made. The world was here before mathematics.
Well, some people would argue that we're living in a simulation as well because you can model everything in mathematics, and that's a whole different thing. But it's a way to interpret.
It's concept
Do you
based.
believe in time?
Time,
Yes.
man-made.
But you believe in it? Does it work?
What? As a concept,
Yeah.
we use it as a concept.
But does it work?
As objectively, it doesn't exist.
I think it exists. It's just we've invented a way to kind of
Capture
measure
it.
it.
Yeah.
Well, we've done it based on the cycles of what we see above us, like the sun, daylight, and night time. That's what we've created. We've created that. Extrapolate out from that, like, the time doesn't exist. It's only man-made.
It gives you like something to quantify.
Yes, so that you can mix
yeah.
other results on it.
Like,
It
everything's
doesn't
sort
make
of like,
sense to me.
yeah,
to
it's
me,
just built up on like
The
a
globe makes sense. Like, you can't disprove it, you can't prove it to me. So, like, I'm just gonna believe it.
So that's honestly, that's all we're looking for right from the I know we went so far, but that's what we want, just an honesty. So you're just going to go with it because it suits you, blah, blah, blah. and you guys are
It's just what I
followers.
believe in, yeah.
It suits what you
It's
believe in.
just
Yeah.
100 years worth of science and stuff.
Science and
I know, but you're appealing to consensus. That's not your experience. What I'm trying to be a realist with you and deal with you as a man. Not imagining I've got the backing of some imaginary consensus behind me. It's two human beings. You can't prove it to me. Prove it to me.
So what do you want me to prove to you? That the Earth is round?
Prove to me that it's a sphere.
Okay, so at first we thought it was flat, then we found out it was round,
How?
and then it was firm.
You're just using words. How is it? There's no scientific.
this whole
There's no scientific experiment that's ever proved motion of the Earth. None. None.
There isn't, it's just what you believe.
There's,
It literally
you,
just comes
you,
down
you
to
think
that.
I'm wrong, right? You go and find the scientific experiment that proves motion of the Earth. Go and find it.
One time.
See you back in an hour,
Contact me
bro.
and you can let me know. Well, listen, I've been at this for 5 years. There's none. Absolutely. We've asked physicists. There's none. How you doing? There's nothing. Trust me. Well, don't trust me. Go and find it for yourself.
How about, are you going to be here tomorrow?
Probably.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, buddy.
Nice to meet you.
too, man. All right.
Take care, mate. Take care.
Cheers.
Thank
Can I have a test? I forgot to lift my tobacco. I've seen you in the sweat.